Let's check it out on the Hi-Tec Oils race highlights reel. And the race start, well, it was actually pretty relaxed. Check this out.
It was mild for a legend car race, wasn't it? Only three or four wide. Just another day. And look, anything could have happened. And we saw a couple of things here where cars went wide. You know, there was Pring, Hogan, Morgan, and Skinner. They were all coming from the back of the field. So it was always going to be a lot of pressure. This was the fight to start in the first half of the race, though, wasn't it? Dylan Thomas, Benno and Williams, and they were going at it position for position. And the green and gold machine and the grey 300 of Benno, there was a big moment here where Benno just went in a bit hot, locked the brakes up, made contact with Williams and sent them off into the gravel trap and got themselves stuck there before we had our first race restart.
Yeah, and it was handled fairly well from the start. A little bit of contact there and riding that wheel.
That was Melville and Simpson, wasn't it? And then the safety car came out again. And Dylan Thomas, well, another restart. But you know what? Ascasendel said, you're not getting me this time. I'm going to send it down the inside. He licked the stamp and sent it all the way. Rob Hogan had worked his way back through the pack by then. And the 46 almost went from fourth to first going into turn number 4. But he couldn't just quite get Ascasendel. It wasn't long, though, till Rob Hogan had that lead back. And Ascasendel wasn't going to give that up at any stage. It's this turn number 3 under brakes. You're just holding your breath knowing how many people have gone off there across the weekend. Rob Hogan and Ascasendel would exchange the lead for the final couple of corners as they get the draft there, but Hogan held on in the final corner. Dylan Thomas in the CXC machine didn't quite have enough to make a charge. Tate just missed out in 4th position, and look, Rob Hogan take nothing away from that drive from 25th all the way to 1st.
Absolutely stunning. Let's check out the race highlights here, and the start was a fairly tidy affair.
Bad one by Carley, couldn't get off the line too well, but a bit more even than yesterday's starts for these two boys. Look at him, he already is in that wide track.
We're starting to see more and more of them venture out that way on the run into turn 1. Nice move from Patterson up in turn 4, the run into, 5, sorry. And off-track excursion, McSwan.
Could have been something caused by that, maybe that caused that little bit of a off at the end there. Nice little move here by Josh. Capato had good pace at the start, but just fell a little bit off the cliff, so I wonder if something happened to his 101 car. And then McLaren came up and carried the OTAP team flag.
Richards was a star performer here, but that was McLaren in the number 11 getting through the inside. Richards fighting back, dealing with Patterson here on that run. Having the healthy bump draft from Boylette. The run into 1 and 2, but tagging that bit of gravel.
Look at that. Oh, he's only just hung on to that. He's done well, just plant the throttle, but yeah, no, that's not a lot. I think that's probably a brake failure, I'd say, because there was no lockup. Yeah. That's unfortunate. A lot of damage there. But Tyler Collins, good job, pulled the gap. Did his fastest lap on the last lap as well. Wasn't playing it safe. Just giving it a good crack.
Innovation Race Cars, they are the fastest cars around Queensland Raceway, and this was your race start. And it was from here that Taunton really asserted his dominance, leading it into turn 1. Goodacre was there or thereabouts with him for the first few laps, but Taunton just piled on the pace.
Yeah, the inside line really is the dominant one. Here was a massive moment for Draney there as Grant Draney as the Monte Carlo. Looks like he's lunged an engine there, a little bit of oil coming out and a lot of white smoke. Lee Stibbs did another tour of pit lanes. You see them working under the car. There potentially some issues there. They got that back out to circulate, but that'll be just getting some time in the seat. But this is where the fight was going on. Danny Studdard finally waited for his moment on Gillison, then worked on Goodacre as he went through the pack, showing some real late pace in this race. But it was short-lived, wasn't it, for Danny Studdard? He got away, and Goodacre had lost a fair bit of speed, as well as Gillison, and then all of a sudden, all on his own, he spun out on the final turn of that lap. Managed to rejoin the race, but we're not quite sure, because at this point we saw the tyre start to delaminate.
Yeah, just spreading rubber debris. We saw that whole belt ripped off, and IRC is going to go fast on that rubber. But for a successful outing, Jeff Taunton had it all in spades and brings it home.
So much to unfold from this race, though, and I don't want to be up there with White Dog to try and figure out who's going to get in trouble as you look back at the start of this race, some of the highlights. Bit of contact there. It was Hughes and Tom Davis on the outside, and unfortunately Gomersall sandwich. Webster in the background. in his own little battle there, went off the track. Josh Thomas coming up the inside. Diesel Thomas was so close at that stage.
Yeah, gritty move, wasn't it, from the teenager as off the track when Davies, that dropped him well outside the top 10 in the early stages of the race. That was just one little highlight. This was the second one. Look at the Gomersall car and Cheney as they crossed over each other's bows here and sent the 35 unit racing car to the infield. And Tyler would drop himself outside the top 10 to finish in 16th position. This was contact between Hume, and it got the front right of Hayden Jackson, allowed Mark Crutcher to move up into position 7 by the end. Graham Cheney mowing the grass on the outside. But what a cool moment this was, out the final turn. And to the delight of Tim Slade and Chevrolet Racing, Alice Buckley wins and puts herself on the pole for race 4 later this afternoon.
Look at some of the race highlights to see how it all unfolded with 30 minutes of racing for the production cars here on this Sunday at the Hi-Tec Oils Super Series. Bacchini is super fast, all the traction control, but look at Tommy Heyman out on the grass with 2 wheels and made 3 positions going into turn number 1.
Saves the groundskeeper doing that job during the week. Now the edges look great on Dick Johnson's straight. He went after Bacchini. This was a bit of contact here and he ended straighten itself out for Derwin with the Toyota 86s ganging up on him at turn number 6. This was a move later on in the race with Trent White getting back towards the front, or in the early stages when the Bacchini car actually was starting to slow up a bit. So maybe they did have a drama with this car and thought they need to run to a number perhaps late in the race, because they were in the 1 minute 20s for most of that race here today. This was the contact between the 2 leaders. Matty Cab described it as a nudge. I think I'd go along with that now. And great driving from Kearns to allow White to catch him up there and ultimately go back into the lead as they started picking their way through the first and second place cars. And eventually Kearns would grab the lead late in this race.
Yeah, managed to work his way back through Tommy Heyman and Bacchini after just going back and doing the gentleman thing to redress that issue. White eventually get on a bit of pace and take the Tommy Heyman and Bacchini as well as he started to get the pace back into that Mustang. Almost looks like just needed a break, potentially on the brakes there. Move back into second position outright. You can see the orange glow in between the spokes of those front wheels. As they came home, Kearns took the checkered flag with White behind. 1 and 2 in the A class, and overall, Bacchini held out Heyman, who was looking for a moment at the end. Let's get down to victory lane though with J-Mac. Let's check out the many highlights of this shortened race under the safety car. Rob Hogan got away to a good start, and Asker Sendel centred around the outside. Dylan Thomas down the inside. Look at Hourigan in the 51. He wasn't shy to get up into 7th position very, very quickly.
Yeah, the number 68 of Thomas up there in the mix in the early stages of the race, as there was our first bit of contact with Kamenoveri coming off second best in the 255 machine. Sendel, some big moves on the back straight here at Queensland Raceway. Hard under brakes into 3, moves across and just covers off our at one time race leader, and he became our race winner with efforts like this. Rob Hogan in the 46 was like he had an extra gear.
Asker Sendel unfortunately went off into the gravel trap on turn number 3, which we've seen quite commonly through this weekend in other categories. And then it was Morgan making contact with, unfortunately, the 71 car of Tippett, who ended up in that tyre barrier and spun around. We didn't see that car actually get under its own power. Once again got towed off to the middle, but unfortunately the safety car brought this race home. Well, let's have a look at some of the race highlights. No surprise these two were going to go at it from start to finish, wasn't it? It was really who was going to slot into 3rd position. And Fawcett did that really early, and Rowe had to just get delegated to 4th position for a moment there. Williams wanted to lead this race early though over Evanet, and really applied the pressure with Evanet defensive to start the race. Eventually, we know that KB Williams was going to lead the race for a number of laps. Further on though, Rowe had to sort himself out, slotted into 3rd position before. It was really a battle for 4th position between Fawcett, Salvatore, Lowing and Brad Johnson for a number of laps in this race.
Yeah, how good was Hunter Salvatore for a few moments there in that battle? He had some moments of brilliance, but getting untidy on a couple of occasions cost him dearly. Here it is, Kobe Williams, the ACMF machine, just putting on an absolute clinic in the end there. There is where Lowing got given the don't argue, just fought it off track.
That could have been a lot worse from there, couldn't it? That was very lucky for lowing it. Managed to rejoin the race there. Here in the end, though, as they went across the finish line. Our top three going across, of course, Williams, Evanet and Rowe.
This is how it went down with the gloomy skies. That's what happened to Tom Davies wiping out on the AASA signs before getting set. So it's Hayden Hume in the 45 that got the sign at the start there. But Alice Buckley led a hungry pack of cars behind, and two TFH brothers working together to move themselves up into second and third. Brock Payne drove across the top. I wonder if that's how the tyre cut down. There's so much debris off the track here this weekend.
Yeah, not even sure whether potentially there was some contact prior to that which caused some panel damage there, but you could see the tyre was smoking the entire time. And this is a massive moment for Tom Davies, who was working his way back through the field very fast, and a lock up on brakes on turn 6 and drove that deep. Des Collier once again, well, he already banged up the left-hand side of the front of the car, decided no, the right-hand side this time was going to try and hang on with that stickers just holding the car together, but eventually that had to succumb into the pit lane and get that fixed, as that was a big moment. Was that Ayrton Hodgson in the background? We did see some dust there, but we weren't sure who it was.
So that was him going off the track earlier in the race. That explains why the splitter was so peppered when he returned to the track. That was Thomas on the inside. This was Gonsall just forcing his way to the front. He'll be our hard charger for this weekend. Up into 4th position. He got Hughes in the end. This was Webster with a lazy spin down here in the Autofix Mustang. But this is as close, Diesel Thomas. He threw everything at the Chevrolet Performance 150. And her first weekend behind the wheel of a TA2 muscle car, picks up pole position and 2 wins and stands on the podium.
Well, that's a fantastic weekend of racing here at Queensland Raceway. It's round 3 of the Hi-Tec Oils Series. Hard to think that we're only halfway through